we're in the Porsche again, and today the mission is to swap out the steering wheel for a must-have, which is a Momo Heritage wheel, to complement the manual steering and of course the looks of the car with the white stitching on it. So while I do that job, while I have the wheel off, I want to do two other things. One of them is actually to take apart the turn signal stock here, along with like your high-low beam control. I want to try to dismantle that thing, clean any of the contacts that I can, and reassemble it because it just seems like it makes poor contact and it doesn't exactly work all the time. So this is a good opportunity to go ahead and take that off while I have the wheel off. And also I'm going to put LED lights behind the actual dash and center console here. And to do that, I have to remove the wheel, I have to remove this anyway. So we're gonna do all of those at the same time. And should make a big improvement in here. So I'll be excited to actually see my gauges at night because about half of them are burnt out. So having oil pressure along with my tachometer would be pretty freaking sweet. And then while we're at it, I would like to take a look at that clock and maybe see if it's a ground issue why it won't work. I've seen multiple things online as to why they may or may not be working, and one of them could just be a simple ground point because the contact for the ground on the back of the clock, it could be pretty finicky. It's very small. So maybe we can come up with a solution for that. So anyway, I'm going to get started. This thing doubles as a thigh master. High beam indicator was flashing. I've already honked the horn once. There we go, there's high beam. I thought I had everything unplugged. Ah, there's one back there. Again, we'll reconvene. Okay, we have this off. And I am actually going to have some fun working on this. So I can clean the contacts there. That won't be too big of a deal. On the high beam side, I can see a little bit of corrosion on the pins. And then down in there, I can see more corrosion. And that's going to be with like the wipers and stuff. So I will disassemble this whole thing, re-grease it, clean all the contacts, and get it back together. And I bet we'll be in business at that point. And so this right here, this portion is the switch for the high beam. Anyway. Pops up, slides down. It just feels very tight. So I think I'll clean that up and it'll be good. I feel like I'm gonna break this piece. Ugh. Oh, there we go. Woo. I'd actually be interested in taking this whole dash cover off, maybe modifying the center speaker, and then flocking the whole thing. Oof. I don't like this. Aha. Okay. So I'm gonna assume that this plug right here is actually for my gallons per hour slash miles per gallon meter. This thing only really worked kind of like the first 10 miles an hour or something like that. Well, the green wire comes unplugged. So the little tang on the back of this was actually folded over. So I'm assuming that's why the whole system didn't work. But I'm gonna plug it in, and then we'll make sure this thing stays plugged in here. I'm wondering if that gauge is gonna work. Doesn't really matter if it doesn't, but we'll see. Just gotta fight the speedo cable. All right, we should have our LEDs in here. That should be working fine. Hoping the gallons per hour slash, we'll just call it the economy meter. Hopefully that's working. Now I'm gonna turn my attention, we'll go back to the bench, turn my attention to the clock spring switch setup, see if we can clean that up and get it working properly. All right, so here we have the turn signal stalk, and of course the lever which controls the high-low beam. So there's a lot of grease on this thing, and I've just kind of cleaned it off a little bit, but I want to try to dig in a little further. So try to get these pins off here. And I have never taken one of these apart. So, seeing this for the first time. As far as getting it apart over here is a little trickier, I think. This is really risky. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Yeah, I think the problem is just too much grease in this thing. It's just disgusting. It's like lithium or something instead of dielectric, so it's just built up on the contacts down there. Actually, right here, I can see on that pin that there's a little tang to depin it, which is probably what's going to be holding us up, and then we can lift this thing straight off. Let me see. Okay, I just fought this particular pin for quite a long time, trying to determine which way I had to pry, but we got it. And so now I can go ahead and lift the top off. So I'm gonna first work on getting this thing drawn out of here. Do me a favor, remember where that goes. Take these guys out. Anyway, you can see how dirty those contacts are. Right there. We will clean this up. All right, so I got half of the job done here. It was a little bit tricky to get this tab undone, as I mentioned, but we have this thing cleaned up. Our contacts are looking a lot better. I'm still gonna put some grease on them, of course, but we can now reassemble this thing, and the only hiccup I feel like I'm gonna encounter is the post right here for the actual lever to be like riveted down to. So it did kind of crack when I was trying to pry it off. So I think what I'll do is just try to plastic weld it. I do have a plastic welder, but it has a pretty large like tip on it. So I'm probably just gonna use the soldering iron and try to just dab on some more plastic, or maybe I could even drill down with a tiny pilot hole and I could put some epoxy on it or something. We should be able to get this thing fastened down though, because ultimately this is held down by screws and stuff, so you know, it shouldn't be too big of a deal, but I'd rather have it secure than not. But I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble this, and then we'll turn our attention to this one. So I'm thinking this won't be so bad. I can get into our contact like back here. Let's see. I can get into our contact back there, and that one is for, let's see, I think that one, yeah, that one is for the washer fluid. Who knows, maybe that'll start working. And then beyond that, I will have to pull the cover off on this side. That's going to be for the high beam control. But I can see that the contacts are just like, blech, like real dirty in here. So we should be able to make a pretty big improvement on this front. So there is a little crack right there, and I really want to be careful with this one, needless to say. So we'll figure it out. This thing runs so smooth. Yes. Now, hopefully we can get that little guy to hold in there. Really shouldn't be a big deal because we're gonna have screws going in right here and here and here. Ultimately, shouldn't matter. We just have to make sure we get it assembled before I really take any pressure off of this thing. All right, well that's chilling. I'm going to start working on taking this thing apart. I will just start with the outer cover here, and we'll see how far I get. Everything is cleaned. All right, I almost don't know if I should have disassembled this one. A little iffy on it. I decided not to take this piece off of the plate. It's already cracked right here. And I've already broken a tab that holds this, this little cover down. So it's all kind of very fragile. So what I did is I took a little bit of Scotch-Brite with some pliers and I just cleaned off the contacts within this the best I could. Got those clean. I've pulled all of these different terminals out, and then I've cleaned those, so they're ready to just be back in. The only other real issue, whenever this thing came apart, this is in the top, this little guy was in there. And honestly, I have no idea what orientation it was in. As the cover was popping off, it was already kind of falling out, so I'm just real torn on how to put that thing back in. So it's going to be a little bit of a fiddly deal. But I'm going to get to it. I'm not really going to film this because it's just going to be me making angry faces at the part I'm working on, and you know what? We'll fight it till we get there. But I'll get this in, and then we'll go slap the stuff back in the car. All right, I got the switch back together. Wasn't too bad. I got it figured out in the end. But this section right here, where I broke this little tab off of, it's under a little bit of tension. So I'm gonna go ahead and just hit it with some acetone and then a bunch of super glue. We're gonna lock this thing down. I will just replace the switch should I have a problem, because again, the whole body of it is cracked, so this is its last leg, so it should work through tomorrow, and then hopefully if it does fail in the future, I can just replace it. It'll be pretty straightforward at that point. So yeah, I'm gonna hit it with some acetone right now, and you know, we're gonna get the job done. Oof. You remember that little cut on your finger? Acetone remembers. Yeah, we're just gonna glue this housing completely together. That's all there is to it. This is not the ideal fix. I understand. It's not like I like doing this, but we've made every attempt that we can to salvage it. So it should be working better than it was, but this is the last time it's going to be taken out to be repaired. So I've got that glue on here. And this is just baking soda. I'm gonna go back for another layer. Here's hoping for the best. Well, I'm just standing over here. I hear a little pop. I come over and I see a spring and a washer sitting on the bench. Yeah, came from right there. Just popped out. Okay. Now we have to go ahead and glue that and fix it. Okay, we've got the method for the repair. So the post right there is our troublesome area. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this trim tool. I can put that washer down as it needs to be. I'll hold pressure with one hand, and then with the other hand, I'm going to take our soldering iron. I'm going to use the point. I'll drive it in kind of into the center and then just try to mushroom that back out. And that should give us enough stability to hold that thing in there. And then once this is all assembled, this is like basically making contact with the other part of the housing. So it really can't come apart. It just has to last until tomorrow. Okay, we are as ready as we're gonna get. Oh, that plastic smoke in the eye. Oh, that hurts. Okay, you know what? That's as good as we're gonna get it. I'm just gonna get this thing assembled as soon as I can. Being very careful with this thing. Put a little grease on our slide portion. Hook in the high beam. All right, that is together. I still definitely want to get this thing into the car as soon as we possibly can. So let's go do that. Well, it appears that bottom one is a little stripped out. How awesome. Most exciting video ever. Now I don't have my clock in here obviously, but I'm just going to set all of this back in, and then whenever I get the guts for the clock, I will go ahead and put it back in. There it is. All right, we're ready for the wheel. All right, on the table, we have the goods. Traditional prototipo, heritage, so it has the distressed leather, and then it has the white stitch, so that's going to offset the looks on the car. Now, a Momo button is included, but I went extra and got a Porsche script. So this is a Momo hub. I actually got this whenever I got the interior for the car, which we haven't done anything with yet. That's going to look good. Okay. Let's go ahead and install it. All right, went through my hardware pile, found 2 more screws. So let's go ahead and get this thing together. Just gonna get a couple of these started here. Right. At this point, I went ahead and got the steering wheel in the car, and I quickly realized that the dash lights were not working. In fact, 5 out of the 6 bulbs were not lit, which meant that I installed them backwards. They are polarity specific, and I should have thought about that because it is a diode, and of course a diode is a one-way valve, so to speak. So just note, if you guys are doing this job yourselves, test them out before you actually put the car back together. Don't be like me. So these bulbs are polarity specific. I got 1 of 6 right. So just had to pull the cluster all the way back out and flip all of the bulbs, and it's right now. It's actually lit up really well, but I've driven it at night a couple times now, and it was dark. I mean, I could see the first half of the Speedo, and then that was it. But now that was pretty snazzy. Highly recommend doing it right the first time. All right, I know this is just such a nerdy thing, but we have a working clock and dash lights. Just so awesome. Super pumped. So let's go drive this thing and I'll show you what it looks like at night. Well, somehow I didn't record actually putting the steering wheel on. I don't know how, but anyway, this thing is back together, and oh my gosh, the signals, the switch feel is so much better. And we actually have very good working turn signals right now, on top of actual high beams. So these didn't work before. I couldn't get them to latch, but now they work perfectly when driving. So the backlighting in the gauges, very nice. It's a white light, so it's like a 5000K light, Now, I don't know where you would source them from, I haven't looked, but if you want a more factory look or a more yellowed look, I would probably go with like a 4500K or something like that. But overall, very, very happy with this. So this is pretty much my perspective from the actual driver's seat here, and you can see that the wheel does cut off the temperature gauge as well as the economy meter. So not too big of a deal. It is a little bit annoying though, so I do think I'm going to put an eccentric spacer on the wheel to bring it up. I think it's advertised as like 10 or 12 millimeters, and that should be enough to allow me to see the temperature gauge without having to like turn my head down, you know. Minor inconvenience though. Well, this is lovely. So interesting side note, that upshift light was never that bright before. So I wonder if I fixed some kind of weird wiring issue in the dash. It's very visible now.